Hey friends, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about the push for a global ID and how that relates to vaccines, 5G, and the smart grid. But first, we're going to ask you to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, which is your home for the Conscious Resistance Network, a website that I have ran since 2013. It is supposed to be a place where we can explore solutions about the many problems we face in the world, a place where we discuss corporate and governmental corruption, a place where we talk about health, spirituality, community. We interview all sorts of interesting guests, and I've been doing this since 2013. So if you are new and you're new to the channel, please do go through the website, go back to the YouTube channel, check out the various playlists that I have arranged that deal with things like 9/11, with 5G, with the Finders, with Epstein. You can see my many documentaries. I put in a lot of time and effort, and I would love for you guys to go back and look at some of that stuff. I also might be reposting some older videos and just reposting them to introduce some of the more current users and viewers into some of my older work, because I know some of you aren't going to take the effort to go backwards, and I get that. It's a lot of years, but there's definitely stuff that has very little views that I think deserves more views, and I hope you'll look at that. I also want to remind you guys to bookmark all of our alternative social media platforms right here if you want to support and sign up for our email newsletter or our text list so you can stay plugged in. So this is coming from greenmedinfo.health, which the guy who is the founder of this website, Sire G, this guy right here at the top left, he was one of the co-organizers of the 5G Summit, the online 5G Summit that I took part in back over the summer, and some of you witnessed that. We're going to be talking more and more about that in the coming days. I'm going to be playing some of the interviews because him and Josh Del Sol of Take Back Your Power did a great job of bringing together all kinds of experts, from true experts in the science field and the health field, EMFs, but also journalists and activists such as myself, to talk about a wide range of things related to 5G and the smart grid and the solutions. And those interviews are still available online. You can purchase access to them. But as a speaker, I have access to all of them. And, Josh wants us to spread the information. So I plan to start showing some of those on my YouTube channel here. But this vaccine exemptions under attack in 2019 article he put together here says the National Vaccine Information Center's 2019 annual report on U.S. state vaccine legislation. And it reports that during the 2019 legislative session, 22 bills across 17 states were filed to an attempt to eliminate vaccine exemptions. 3 bills passed, 12 died, and 7 bills are still pending in California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin at the time of this article. Status on all the bills is in the report, reflect their positions as of September 9, 2019. So the NVIC has apparently been working to prevent vaccine injuries and deaths through public education since 1982, and they are the largest and oldest U.S. charity disseminating information about diseases, vaccines, and informed consent on vaccination. They say that the NVIC provides well-referenced, accurate information to the public about vaccine science, policy, and law, but does not make vaccine use recommendations. So they sound fairly objective. And they tracked to the 2019 legislative sessions and bills around the country. Again, 42 vaccine-related bills are still pending in California, D.C., Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And action to support the good bills and fight against the bad bills is still needed. So they give some highlights. Out of the 40 bills filed across 22 states to either eliminate or restrict some vaccine exemptions, 5 of them passed: California, Maine, New York, Washington, and 12 are pending, and 23 died. Out of 137 vaccine-related bills that NVIC opposed, only 18 bad bills passed. The 2019 legislative session featured more proposed vaccine-related bills worthy of support than any legislative session since the launching of the NVIC's advocacy portal in 2010. So I will say, and I think this article makes the point, that although we mainly hear in the independent alternative media, because you're not going to hear it in the deadstream corporate media, about the bad bills that are working to take away exemptions and to generally take away people's freedoms to have choice when it comes to their health decisions, particularly with vaccines, that we are more likely to hear about those bills because, well, those are the ones people are afraid of, right? So they're going to make a lot of noise. But we hear less about the good bills that are being passed to give people vaccine choice, to sort of codify those options and to make sure that people's health freedom and medical freedom are protected. But it seems, in fact, there are quite a few of those. There were 6 states with 10 or more vaccine-related bills filed this session. Texas had the record of 29 bills, and to me that makes sense because as California and New York has been attacking more and more of the medical and health freedom, there are more and more people moving from those states to Texas, and there are doctors like Peter Hotez, who's from Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston, who's been on Joe Rogan's show, who says that Texas is the next battleground state when it comes to vaccinations. So I think that's where we're going to see a lot of action and pushing of these bills in the coming years, and I expect 2020 is going to be a very heated time when it comes to that. New York has 19, New Jersey 13, Arizona 11, Connecticut and Iowa both ended with 10 bills each. Also, we have the remaining vaccine-related bills that were either passed or defeated in states during the 2019 legislative session are broken out and described below by category. So then they have 122 bills related to vaccine exemptions and informed consent. They have, let me see, let's keep going down. They look also at exemption disclosure and school shaming, some bills related to eliminating or restricting vaccine exemptions, children vaccinating themselves, expanding vaccine exemptions, and informed consent. So it does say, look, that hardworking vaccine and health freedom advocates have been able to successfully pass 58 bills in the following 24 states to expand various exemptions on vaccines and protect informed consent rights. Arizona, Connecticut, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Texas, Vermont, Washington, West Virginia. All these places have actually put bills forward to provide for vaccine exemptions and informed consent rights. So again, like I said, we don't really hear about those good bills, but we hear more about the negative bills that are coming after people's rights. And because, we got to fight the ones that are bad, but we should also take some time to recognize that people are making efforts to pass good bills. And I say good bills in the sense that, yeah, it's a bill, it has to do with the government, nothing can truly be said to be good. But at the end of the day, look, let's put aside our anarchist dream world for a moment and say that if a state passes a bill that makes it into law that protects people's medical and health freedom, then that's a positive thing. So that's a good thing. Vaccine mandates, 47 bills, expanding vaccine mandates, restricting vaccine mandates, 18 bills in 13 states that would have restricted vaccine mandates. Unfortunately, none of them passed. Well, they say unfortunately. Well, they would have restricted vaccine mandates, not vaccine exemptions. So that's interesting. They're trying to restrict the ability to mandate vaccines. 27 bills, vaccine tracking and reporting bills. Also, we have, how many more? Sorry, guys. 27 bills related to vaccines, authorizing more professions to administer more vaccines. Now, this is interesting. More states continue to authorize more pharmacists to expand services to include the administration of vaccines to younger children. In 2019, both Arkansas and Montana passed bills to allow pharmacists to have the ability to vaccinate children as young as 7 and older. Texas fortunately killed a bill, SB 1813, that would have allowed pharmacists to administer vaccines to children 7 years and older without a required doctor-patient relationship. That's pretty crazy. So there have also been vaccines requiring vaccine promotion and marketing. So yeah, this is a pretty good article that summarizes the good and the bad bills related and the attempts to take away people's rights to say no when it comes to vaccine choice and what type of medicine you want to use on your child, and put this into the the kind of perspective right here with this Vox article that just came out in the last couple days. The global crackdown on parents who refuse vaccines for their kids is on. Countries like Germany and Australia are tired of measles outbreaks, so they're moving to fine anti-vaccine parents. And here we go, guys. This is makes all sense to me because you may remember a while back I covered that at the beginning of 2019, the World Health Organization said one of the top 10 threats to global health was, quote, vaccine hesitancy, of people being scared or pushing back against vaccines. They worried how this was going to affect global health. At least that's what they want us all to think. And now we're nearly to the end of 2019, going into 2020, and they have normalized the idea that you are a bad parent or you're a danger to society if you choose not to vaccinate your children or view yourself are not vaccinated. And it's only going to get worse. Trust me, it's only going to get worse as people continue to just slurp up and eat this stuff, like this propaganda. They are going to support mandatory forced vaccinations, not only for children, but eventually for adults. I believe this is coming in 2020 and 2021. There will be more promotion of epidemics and outbreaks, and we will see this pushed. So here's a quick roundup of the global crackdown on vaccine-refusing parents. In Germany on Thursday, lawmakers passed a law stating that parents need to prove they're vaccinating their kids against measles or risk fines of about $2,750. Unvaccinated children also risk losing their places in school. That's already happening. Italy's parliament passed a law that makes 10 childhood vaccinations mandatory for kids up to age of 16. Mandatory vaccinations for kids up to 16 years old in Italy, and requires parents to prove their children are immunized before entering school or else face a $560 non-compliance fine. So here we go, fines and mandatory vaccinations. And kids who aren't vaccinated are being told not to come to school. In France, the health ministry made 11 vaccines, up from the current 3, mandatory for children, though there's no talk of a fine yet. 11 vaccines, mandatory for children. Further afield, New South Wales, Australia, passed no jab, no play legislation in September 2017. The law bans unvaccinated kids from preschool and daycare and fined the directors of the school that admit unimmunized children $4,000. The law in New South Wales is modeled on a similarly stringent laws in other Australian states and across the country. Parents with children who aren't immunized aren't eligible for child care benefits. Boom, you won't be able to get money from the state if you don't play their vaccine game. In the U.S. and New York, where a large measles outbreak raged on for nearly a year, the government threatened parents who don't vaccinate their children with up to a fine of $1,000, and we've covered that. The fines come amid a growing problem with measles. Over the past 2 years, measles cases have been edging up in countries around the world. Before we consider punishing American parents, we might try this. Here, vaccine skeptics have also been persuading more parents in a number of states to refuse shots for their children. So is the U.S. ready for a similar crackdown? Punishing parents for doing things that could harm their kids is not without precedent in the U.S. For example, there are laws in various states requiring parents to use car seats or seat belts for their children or else pay a fine or be docked driver's license points. Same goes for firearm storage. But before we start fining anti-vaxxers, there are some much more basic steps that the U.S. could take to improve vaccination rates. And they involve simply making it harder for parents to opt out of routine shots on behalf of their kids. Make it harder for parents to opt out. This is their game. They're telling you right here. Vaccines fall under the public health jurisdiction of the states, and there's currently a lot of variation across the U.S. when it comes to immunization requirements. Even though all 50 states have legislation requiring vaccines for students entering school, 45 states allow exemptions for religious beliefs against immunizations, and 15 states currently grant philosophical exemptions for those opposed to vaccines because of personal or moral beliefs. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the parts of the country that make it easier for people to opt out of their shots tend to have higher rates of people opting out of vaccines because people don't want them. So a lax regulatory environment can create space for more parents to refuse vaccines. So if we don't have regulation and government forcing it, people are going to have the freedom to opt out. We can't have that. That's why some states have been moving to crack down on this trend, most notably California, yada, yada. I don't want to give these people too much of my time, but you get where this is going. Something else was going on in California, and it offset that increase in medical exemptions. They're basically saying that we need to act like California and remove exemptions, medical, philosophical, whatever. Lawmakers should look for ways to make it inconvenient for people to opt out by doing things like introducing exemptions with regular renewals. Fewer than a few dozen states require annuals or more frequent recertification for medical exemptions. So, for example, if a child in K-12 school gets an exemption in kindergarten, it will follow them through college. She'll never be asked to renew that exemption, or lawmakers could crack down on the conditional entry to school. And they should move fast. Wow. So they're saying they should move fast and that this needs to happen in the U.S., but they're going to try to make it as hard for you to opt out as possible. And again, I want to put this into perspective of something I've been researching recently, ID2020, which is a part of the global smart grid system. It's definitely a part of Agenda 2030. They call it an approach that is holistic, market-based, and addresses the full scope and scale of the challenge. ID2020 Alliance is a global partnership maximizing the potential of a digital ID to improve lives. A global digital ID where we can be tracked and traced and our social credit score can start taking points away from us and denying us certain benefits. Of course, they say this global digital ID could be used anywhere and everywhere. It's a global ID, just like we're moving into the US with the national ID card, the real ID card that's been coming since 2005 and is finally going to be here by 2020 and 2021. This ID 2020 is a public-private partnership maximizing the potential of a digital ID to improve lives. Again, all this stuff is going to be couched in terms of talking about how much it's better for you. And we scroll down here to the alliance partners, the Rockefeller Foundation, Microsoft, and Gavi. The Vaccine Alliance brings together public and private sectors with the shared goal of creating equal access to new and underused vaccines. And I want to remind you guys of this story I did a couple months ago. Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, says anti-vax info is a disease and should be censored. So, Gavi and the Rockefeller Foundation are partners with the ID 2020 Foundation that's pushing this digital ID to improve lives around the world. And what do you think is going to happen when you choose to or try to refuse a vaccine and you have a digital ID that is partnered with Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, that says that anti-vax info is a disease and should be censored? You will be wiped out. You will be blocked out from regular, nice, polite society, and things will be very difficult for you to exist. And that is already happening. Obviously, this is happening in the Western nations. Look at the people they're talking about: Germany, Italy, France, Australia, and the US. You don't see this happening elsewhere yet, I'll say yet. But I do think there are some places where it might be more free than these Western nations and ability to go somewhere where you're not going to be mandatory vaccinated, although it's going to be increasingly difficult. And this is why we need to form free communities, decentralized hubs of freedom of expression and freedom of belief and freedom of movement, and building communities that can thrive and live in harmony and grow their own healthy food and choose how they want to medicate themselves and their child and live freely. This is the only solution. These are what I call freedom cells, and I'll be talking more and more about them in the coming days for those who are unfamiliar. There are solutions to this problem that we're facing, and it has to involve us coming together as free people. Otherwise, we're all screwed, and we are going to get vaccinated whether you like it or not. And if you don't, they're going to lock you out of society and who knows what else. So please, spread this as far and wide as you can. The push to crack down on parents who refuse vaccines is on. There are plenty of bills pushing for vaccine exemptions to be removed, as well as some bills fighting that. There's a push for a global ID that is partnered with the Global Vaccine Alliance that says that spreading information that is, quote, anti-vax should be censored from the internet. And this is the world we're living in 2019, going into the 2020s. We're in a beautiful, interesting time to be alive, and the only way we're going to survive it is if we come together, if we expose the lies, and we build a better world. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free. Peace.